Alright, so for number 10, guys, I have the 2006 Adam Wainwright. So let me talk a little bit about him. This was actually his first year in the league, and Tony La Russa just wanted to kind of bring him in slowly, and didn't want to bring him into the starter's role right away. So what they did was they put him in the bullpen, and he was a little bit different a pitcher than what he is now. He threw a little bit harder, and he had a little bit. Well, actually, that year he had his highest K per nine of his career at 8.64. So let me talk a little bit about his stats. That year he did only have 3 saves, but again, he saved a lot of games in the playoffs, including closing out the World Series. Again, his K per nine was 8.64. He did pitch 75 innings. His left on base percentage was really good, so I gave him a fairly good clutch rating, especially for closing out the World Series. Home runs per 9 was .72, which wasn't bad, you know, a little above average. Walks per 9 was actually one of the worst of his career as well, so it was a little bit, I mean, it wasn't bad, but it was 2.64 per 9 innings, so I put it at 69. Pretty much he threw the same pitches: sinker, four seam, the cutter slash slider, whatever you want to call it, his devastating curveball, and he does throw a changeup occasionally. So what you're looking at for this card is a guy that can throw a little bit harder. He has solid per 9s. So, and plus I think it'd be cool just to have a card like this, because since he's just such a good starter now, you don't see many players that, you know, closed out the World Series their first year. And that's going to be it for Wainwright. So I hope to see him in MLB 16 the show. Alright, next on our list at number 9 is the 2013 Jason Grilli of the Pittsburgh Pirates, and he came in at 87 overall. So that year he pitched 50 innings, had a K per 9 of 13.32. So you see for the K per 9, I actually put it at 98. Didn't quite max it out because Batances and Chapman still have a higher K per 9. Walks per 9 was 2.34, kind of similar to Wainwright's, so about the same rating. Home runs per 9 again, similar to Wainwright's, .72, so I put it at 72 home runs per 9. Clutch, 85. He had an 80% left on base percentage that year, and he pitched. They lost to the Cardinals a year in the DS, but he pitched well in the playoffs in that series. And in the wild card game, I don't even know if he was used in the wild card game. So I bumped his clutch up to 85. Let's talk about his pitches real quick. So on the game, he has a cutter, and he does toy around with a cutter. That was more earlier in his career. 2013 though, checking off Fangraphs, he only threw 3 pitches. That was the fastball, changeup, and slider, and he was mainly a fastball slider guy. His slider was his main out pitch. So this guy was striking out 13.3 batters per 9 innings. So his hard fastball coming at 94, 95 with some movement, and then his slider that comes in about 85, 86. That's very sharp. So this is going to do it for Jason Grilli, and I hope we can see him on MLB 16 the show. Next we have Jason Motte, the 2012 Jason Motte for the St. Louis Cardinals. So in 2011, Jason Motte actually closed out the World Series. The following year, they used him primarily as a closer, and Tony La Russa really started to trust him. And that year, he did have 42 saves, 72 innings pitched, struck out 10.7 per 9, 2.13 walks per 9, allowed about 1.1 home run per 9. So his attributes, his hits per 9 was remarkable. He only allowed 49 hits in 72 innings. So I gave him almost maxed out hits per 9. His K per 9 was 10.75, so that should be in the low 90s. Walks per 9 was 2.13, so I gave him 76. Home runs per 9 was probably his one downfall. He did give up his fair share of home runs, but it wasn't awful, so I gave him a 60 for that. Clutch, since he did close out the World Series the year before, and he did have he did have 42 saves that year, and he left 81% of the runners on base, so I gave him a nice clutch rating. As far as his pitches go, he's a 2-pitch pitcher that year. He did have like another wrinkle pitch. I just gave him a changeup to kind of just to throw it in there. He rarely threw it, but he was mainly fastball cutter. So his cutter is one reason his hits per 9 were so good. I mean, you could compare him to Rivera and his nasty cutter. Just nobody could square up a pitch on him. And he did really well in the playoffs that year as well. So overall, I mean, I think it'd be cool to see Jason Motte, especially him being a Cub now, to see him come back as a flashback in MLB 16 the show. Alright, so the next player we're going to talk about is the 2009 Luke Gregerson for the San Diego Padres. So in 2009, Luke Gregerson actually was not a closer. In fact, this past year was the only year he was really the primary closer, and that was for the Astros. 2009, he was really a setup man. San Diego had a very, very good bullpen. So that year he pitched 75 innings. He struck out 11.16 per nine. His walks per nine was pretty bad at 3.72, so it is below average. Home runs per nine was remarkable. I only gave up 3 home runs for the year, so I almost maxed that out. But again, let's keep in mind, guys, home runs per nine doesn't really do anything except for Sims. So for a mode like Diamond Dynasty, it's really not going to affect much except his overall. However, his strikeouts is almost maxed out at 11. So you know, this will be an interesting pitcher. So again, let's talk about his hits per nine. He allowed, in 2012, he allowed 57 hits. Or excuse me, 2009, he allowed 62 hits and 75 innings pitched, which is pretty solid, so I gave him a 78 for that. His clutch, I only gave 65. He was barely above average in left on base percentage and didn't really, you know, do anything other than that. Overall, he had a great year that year, a very solid pitcher, and is actually his highest WAR of any season in which he had. Let's talk about his pitches. His primary pitch is that slider. I don't know if you guys watched Luke Gregerson. He is kind of an unorthodox pitcher, and he relies a lot on that slider, so his slider is absolutely filthy. In 2009, his fastball came in at about 92-93, which is pretty solid considering he pitched, you know, most of his games at sea level. He had a little sinker, he had a nice changeup, and he threw a curveball every now and then. Curveball wasn't the greatest, but this guy could definitely get his strikeouts. He was very wild, and overall he comes in at 84 overall. The reason I don't put him number 10, you guys should keep this in mind. I'm kind of just rating them based on how I think they'll do in the game. But this is a very weird pitcher. His walks per nine is going to be low, so he's going to be hard to control. But if you guys know how to control pitchers and use analog or meter, this guy should be absolutely nasty, and I hope we see him in MLB 16 to show. Alright guys, so next on our list we have the 2009 Jonathan Broxton for the LA Dodgers. Overall, he'd come in at about 89. It could be high 80s, low 90s. Let's talk about his stats a little bit that year. Pitched 76 innings at 13.5 K per nine, so expect to see that K per nine almost maxed if we do see this card. His walks per nine was 3.5 per 9 innings, which is absolutely awful, so it's definitely going to be below 50. Home runs per nine was solid, 0.47 per 9. Clutch was above average, nothing too crazy. So we're going to talk about his hits per nine here. His hits per nine was 44 hits allowed in 76 innings, which is remarkable, and that should almost be maxed out as well, so I gave him a 95 for that. Talk about his pitches. That year, or he still kind of throws the same pitches. He throws four seam or fastball, slider, change. His fastball that year clocked in, you know, anywhere from 97 to 98. Sometimes he even get it up there to maybe 99. This guy could really bring the heat. His slider and changeup was good, not great, just enough, you know, just enough to offset from his fastball. So this could definitely be a fun pitcher to use in MLB 16 to show. Alright guys, next on our list we have our Huston Street. So this is the 2009 version when he played on the Rockies. I was really debating on, you know, whether to add the 2006 A's or the 2009 Rockies. I went with the Rockies because he struck out a little bit more, and plus it was kind of phenomenal what he did that year pitching in Coors. So let's talk a little bit about his stats that year. In 2009 for the Rockies, he had 35 saves, 61 innings pitched, struck out 10.2 per 9. Talking about his hits per 9, he allowed only 43 hits and 61 innings pitched, so I find that to be even, you know, just incredibly phenomenal pitching in Coors Field. Talking about his attributes, so that's one reason I gave him a really high hits per 9. Kind of gave him even a higher boost since he pitched at Coors. His K per 9 is should be in that low 90 range with a 10.2 K per 9. Not quite like maxed out, but should be in the 90s. Walks per 9 was 1.9 walks per 9 innings, which is definitely above average, so I think it should be in the 80s. Home runs, I just put at 70. He gave about 1 home run per 9, which isn't bad, especially considering, again, he pitched at Coors. And his clutch, he was about average with runners, leaving runners on base. 73% of the runners, or 73% runners he left on base. So it's not bad, but nothing great. Talking about his pitches, should come with 4 pitches. And he's kind of similar to Luke Gregerson with a slider. He's got a very good slider. But what makes him different from Gregerson is that he relies a little bit more on his changeup and fastball. He had a good combination of four seam, changeup, and slider that year, and he does have a little bit of movement on his fastball. So he should come with 4 pitches, and I'd love to see this guy in MLB 16 the show. Alright guys, so next on our list is Jonathan Papelbon. So, I mean, we pretty much have to include this guy. He had so many great years for the Red Sox, had a few good years with the Phillies as well. So I picked the 2011 version. This guy, it was hard to pick one year, but overall his WAR was the highest in 2011. Could have also went with like 2008 or 2007. But I went with 2011 because I'm kind of biased towards the K per 9. So in that year he had 31 saves, struck out over 12 batters per 9, only allowed 1.4 walks per 9 innings, which is very good, and only allowed 0.42 home runs per 9. The one downfall to that season was he did have some troubles pitching with guys on base. He let almost 30% of runners score when they got on base, so that wasn't too good for him. So I put his clutch down to more in that average range. Let's talk about his pitches. So he's pretty much a 3-pitch pitcher. He also has a 2-seamer or sinker, a little movement to his fastball, but his 2 main out pitches are the slider and the splitter. Also, before we talk too much into his pitches, or before we finish up here, I should note that his K per 9 is very good, but you won't see many pitchers with a good K per 9 like that. He also had a great walks per 9, so just keep that in mind. Same thing with his pitches. A lot of his pitches have very good control, so you'll be able to, accurately put his pitches where you want, and they'll have good velo and break on them. So I hope we see Jonathan Papelbon in MLB 16 the show. Alright guys, next on our list is the 2006 Joe Nathan. You could pick a multitude of years for this guy. He's been in the league forever, so hopefully he plays his final year. He hasn't retired yet, so thinking this would be an awesome flashback for a closer. So I picked the 2006 year he played for the Twins. So let's talk about his stats that year. He pitched 68 innings, struck out 12.5 per 9, walked 2.1 per 9. Home runs per 9 was 0.40 per 9. His left on base percentage is around 85%. And in total that year he allowed 38 hits on 68 innings pitched. So if you look at his attributes, his hits per 9 is almost maxed out. Didn't give up many hits. His K per 9 was 12.5 per 9, so I put that at 94. Again, I don't think it's necessarily the best, but it's definitely going to be up there. Walks per 9 was definitely above average, pretty solid at 2.1 per 9. Home runs per 9, again, pretty solid, so I gave him 88. His clutch was very good as well, straining almost 85% of runners left on base. Overall, he should come in around, that upper 90 range, so anywhere from 96, 97, maybe even 98. I don't know what they'll want to do, but we should definitely expect to see a Joe Nathan. Talk about his pitches for 2006. All right, so this guy has thrown a lot of different pitches in his career. He's toyed around with a lot of different pitches, especially that year. He toyed around with a split finger and a changeup. Earlier in his career, he also toyed around with a cutter. So I gave him a 4-seamer. I mean, his primary pitches are going to be his 4-seamer, slider, and curveball. Those are all his main pitches and go-to pitches. I gave him the cutter and changeup to add in there. That year, he did throw like a changeup slash splitter, not very often, but I did see it in Fangraphs. And the cutter, he toyed around a little bit early in his career, so I gave him a cutter as well. They won't be his great pitches, but you'll have 5 pitches to toy with. So I definitely expect to see a Joe Nathan in MLB 16 the show. Alright guys, so next on our list, in my opinion, probably one of the best potential flashbacks they could add in for MLB 16 the show is Fernando Rodney, 2012 when he pitched the Rays. There's a lot of years you could choose for this guy. You could choose, when he played for the Tigers or the Angels, or even recently for the Mariners. He's had a good season for them. But I went back with the 2012 Rays. I feel like it was his best year. So in that year, he pitched 74 innings, which was a career high. His hits per 9 was remarkable. He only allowed 43 hits in 75 innings, or 74.2 innings. His K per 9 was a little bit above 9 per 9. So it's, again, pretty solid, but it shouldn't be in that upper 90s or lower 90s. It should still be up in the upper 80s. Walks per 9 was pretty solid, around 1.81, nothing too crazy. Home runs per 9 is maxed out. He only gave up 2 home runs all year, so I just maxed it out. His clutch, maxed it out. Guys, in 2012, Fernando Rodney, he left 90 guys, 90% of the runners he left on base. So that means when somebody got on base, only 10% of the time they'd come around and score. That's phenomenal. So he pitched out a lot of jams that year, and he was a big-time pitcher for them. Not to even mention he had 48 saves that year. I didn't even mention that part. Talk about his pitches. So this was the last year Fernando Rodney actually started or stopped using his slider, but he did throw it a little bit that year. His main 2 pitches now, or that year I guess, was the fastball, just circle change. He had a little movement on his fastball, so he just still has that 2-seamer. That year, his fastball, 4-seamer especially, he'd go up to 97, 98. 2-seamer, you're looking more 95, 96. Circle change, maxed out break, absolutely filthy circle change, and that's what this guy's known for. So I'm definitely expecting to see this guy in MLB 16 to show. Alright guys, so in my opinion, this should be the undisputed #1 reliever / closer for a flashback in MLB 16 to show. That is Koji Uehara. So this would be the 2013 version. I was kind of skeptical to include him since this is only a few years ago, but I think you have to include this. I think he had a remarkable year that year. I think it's one of the best years ever for a closer, especially when I start breaking down some of these stats. So that year he pitched 74 innings, 74.1 innings. He only had 21 saves. He did close out the World Series though. His K per 9 was 12.23, not quite maxed out, but I gave him 97 for that. Walks per 9, guys. This guy only walked 1 batter per 9 innings. So in 2013, out of 74.1 innings pitched, he walked 9 guys the entire year. That's remarkable, just absolutely remarkable. His control is amazing. His home runs per 9 is .61, which is honestly probably one of his worst attributes, but it's still great. It's still like really good. So I give him 84 for that. Batting average of balls in play only 188. Now here's something else that's remarkable. Not only did this guy close out the World Series, win a championship that year, this guy, he left 92% of his runners on base. I mean, how more clutch can you get? This guy definitely deserves a 99 clutch rating. If they're whatever it does in the game, he definitely deserves it. Overall, his control is going to be great. All right, talking about his pitches. So I know you guys are kind of like, "Whoa, curveball." Well, it says on Fangraphs he actually played around with a curveball a little bit. He threw it maybe once every other game. Not even that really. It says he threw it like 0.5%, but he did throw one, and it was only 70 miles an hour. So if they include that, it'll make him even that much more nasty in the game. Of course, he has his, his fastballs, his cutters, his 4-seam, 2-seam, and splitter. His splitter is his strikeout pitch, and he has great control of it. Gave him 99 break for that. So I think this would be a great throwback player, a great flashback if they decide to include him. So let me know what you guys think. I think these are the best 10 or some of the coolest 10 they can include for MLB 16 show.